All right, guys, I'm here today with Ivan, also known as Squat Every Day. And, we've been trying to set this up for a while. It's kind of tricky because he's in Australia. You're in, what part of Australia did you say you were in?
South Australia, Adelaide.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
know isn't that on the east side still down there a little bit? I know some guys from Sydney and Melbourne and stuff, but not Adelaide. How long have you
Yeah.
lived there?
Man, so I'm 33 now. I came here when I was 10. So, 23 years, man. Originally from a country that's not around anymore, unfortunately, Yugoslavia. So southern kind of Balkan region, southern Europe, between Italy and Greece. There's like a country there, Yugoslavia. Now it's Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, all of that. The civil war that happened in the 90s. That's kind of how I ended up in Australia, really. So yeah, 23 years in August, I reckon. Yeah, August.
Have you lived in any other parts of Australia, or just have you been based in Adelaide this whole time?
Oh, Adelaide the whole time. So, we came out here as refugees and we didn't get, a lot of options back in the day. I think it was a choice between Perth and Adelaide. And my Adelaide, I don't really know what they'd based that decision on. They didn't really know much about, what, the pros and cons of either of the cities were. I think my dad just said, let's go in the middle so we have access to everywhere, kind of. But yeah, that's basically, we've kind of lived here ever since we got here.
So do you remember that time pretty vividly, like when you were 10 years old and like the war was going on? What all, transpired? How'd that feel before you left for
Well, I was
Australia?
so I was born in '89, and the war started in '91. So I was 2 years old, and from that moment on, it was just run around the country until we got to Australia in '98. We were originally from Croatia. This is where it gets a little bit tricky for people to understand. So we lived in Croatia as Serbians. If that makes any sense to anyone. Really, there was three religions in Yugoslavia. And, up until '91, people lived everywhere, right? Yugoslavia was this big country and people lived everywhere. Like, all religions lived everywhere. But when the war started in '91, basically people had to go to their sides, right? So we lived in Croatia as Serbians, Orthodox Christians. Croatians are Catholic Christians. And so then we had to kind of shoot off to Serbia. But of course, Serbia wasn't our country, right? Like, we're misplaced from just that move. And then there was a whole lot of instability. We're homeless, displaced. And my parents knew the trajectory the country was going to have for the next foreseeable future. And so we kind of applied for refugee status somewhere. And we got offered actually the States. There was a choice of states, United States, Canada, and Australia. And I thought, this was probably a whirlwind for my parents, but they just wanted the furthest place away from all the mess. And Australia is basically the furthest country you can probably think of. I don't know, it's pretty far away. And so we got here in '91, in 1998. I was like 9.5, 10 years old. And we just, try to form a new life, new language, new everything, culture, and all of that.
Was that pretty tough then? Like trying to get used to living in a new country, everything's different, you have to start over. Like, how did that affect you? Like, how tough was that?
That was tough, man. But I think out of the four people in my family, my parents and my brother, I probably had it the easiest because I was a kid, man. Like 9.5, 10 years old. I had friends over there and whatever, but you're still a kid at 9, 10 years old. My brother, who was 14, had a more difficult time. And then obviously my parents, probably the hardest thing, that was complete sacrifice on their end. I'm sure if they didn't have me and my brother, they probably would have stayed. They just came out here for a better future for us. So it was a stressful time. Like my parents, they're a little older, not like 10 years old, so language and all of that takes a lot of time for them to learn. And obviously the family and friends, we were completely isolated. We didn't have anyone here. It's not like we were coming to somebody from the family here in Adelaide. We had no one. So we came out here, and Australia was pretty good. Like, they supported us for the first, I think it was like 6 months. They gave us, like social security type stuff. And then after 6 months, you're on your own. You got to go. My dad got a job in the factory. My mom got a job as a personal assistant in a nursing home, and basically started building the blocks from there, man, basically.
Are you still pretty close with all your family members to this day? And do they all live in the area still?
Oh man, we're dispersed all over the place. You know, the war wasn't, you know, I don't know if you know much about the history of that area, but it was a pretty nasty war, man. So we've got family all around the world, man. We've got family in Chicago, in Canada, and uh, Germany. We're everywhere. South Africa, there's some people. Basically, people went everywhere. Some stayed, you know. Unfortunately, some lost their lives as well. So it was a messy situation. And you know, to this day, man, like, you know, you think about these moments, and it's almost like it's like another life almost, because it was so long ago, and you know, you kind of assimilate to another world. And you know, a lot of times people ask me, oh, you know, Ivan, are you Serbian or Croatian or Bosnian? You know, and they expect like there's still this like animosity between maybe myself and somebody else that's from another region. It's not like that at all. In fact, like I always say to people, man, what saddens me the most is that the country actually broke up in the first place, because I reckon it was an amazing country until all the politics and all the shit, you know, happened around it. But that's what I'm most sad about, the actual conflict, because we're the same people, man. Like different religions, sure, but we're the same people, man. You know.
Have you been back there since then?
So we're unique. My whole family is very unique. We've never been back. First of all, the place where we're from, like the house that we lived in, it's leveled. You know, there's nothing there for us. You know, it's completely gone. You know, I've lost some close family members, and my parents are basically, how would you say, probably too scarred to go back and, you know, open up those wounds and see those grave sites from back in the day. So we've never been, but there's been a lot of people around us here. There's a lot of Serbian, Croatians, Bosnians in Adelaide here. And, you know, people go basically every year. Some of them go every year and visit and whatever. And, but we haven't. I want to, you know, eventually I want to go back and see, you know, kind of with 30-plus-year-old eyes, you know, see what I saw as a 10-year-old. It's kind of hard to remember all that because it was so turbulent from the moment I was basically born all the way to came to Australia. It was just, you know, from one house to another apartment, just basically going from a really hot spot to like a less, you know, dangerous spot until we came to Australia, man.
Do your siblings and your parents still live in Adelaide?
Yeah. My brother's here, him and his family, and I'm here with my wife and kids, and my parents are still here. And so we all kind of stayed together. You know, actually, my brother's like 10 minutes away. So we've all kind of, you know, stayed together and see each other quite often, actually.
And how do you think like that shaped you, like growing up? Because going through those hard times, a lot of people would never even know any adversity close to that, where you have to like start completely over. You're completely vulnerable, going to a whole new country. That must have been really tough, but shaped you and shaped your whole life up to this point.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, like, what's formed some of my philosophies about training. It's hard to say, one specific thing, but, if you've experienced real life hardship, hardship in the gym is not really hardship. It's freaking holiday, right? Actually, I was talking to somebody in the gym the other day. I was saying how, like, some of these Eastern, Europeans, the bloc, the Westerners look at that, type of training methods, and people think, Jesus Christ, you have to be nuts to do that. Well, their life is pretty rough, man, as it is. And so you wouldn't see somebody training in any other different way, man. Like, it's, people that struggled all their life, and then they go to the gym, and it's like, for them, it's just a piece of cake to do some of the things that they do, because life is hard. But, what's the quote? I can't remember who said it. It's really hard to sleep in silk and wake up 4 o'clock in the morning and go for a run when you wake up out of a bed like that. But when you wake up on the floor and you're cold, it's not too much of a fall in comfort to go for a run in the middle of the winter. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, rough environment kind of breeds rough people. I think certainly there's been a lot more people out there who've had harder upbringings. But certainly that's had an impact on me. I'll be lying to you that I grew up a normal kind of life. I did, lots of death and suffering around me, from hearing mortar fires, a freaking 8-year-old knocking the fridge over, to watching a tank roll by, you know, people with machine guns walking around. Like, that's not normal living, right? But, you know, as a 9-year-old, you see that, you're like, that's how stuff is, man. Like, you don't really know what normal is, you know what I mean? But then you come to Adelaide and you're walking around, you're like, Jesus Christ, man, this looks like there's no one around, you know? There's no tanks around, man. What's going on? That kind of mentality. But I don't know, as I kind of grew up, I kind of realized what normal was, and then you kind of relax a little bit and you kind of learn to do the normal way, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, even here, it's, you know, things are pretty stable. Life is pretty good. And, you know, a lot of people don't know what hardships are, and they don't know about, you know, difficulty. So it makes you weak. It makes you mentally weak. So comparing that to training, it's like, okay, that's fun, going to train every day. That's not, you know, your mentality towards it is completely different from everybody else, because it's like, you've seen things being as bad as they could be. And a lot of people never see that. They have all the comforts. We have all the technology. Life is not a struggle. So everybody else thinks it's crazy, but you're like, no, I've done way worse. I've been through way worse. This is fun. This is enjoyable. It's an escape. And I think that's kind of the difference.
You know, the funny thing is, like, you know, I've watched a lot of sport as I grew up. And if you look at some, like, for instance, like, I follow NBA mostly. You see a lot of these guys who are like superstars in the league right now. A lot of them have come up through a really rough time. You know, like, some of these guys came from the street, didn't have a lot. You know, the term sugar water for some of these guys that grew up on, like, basically, you know, hardship, you know. And, you know, is that a coincidence that some of these guys who kind of grew up in kind of a rough way climb to have the success that they have? It's the hunger, man. You know, these people are hungry. You know, like, if you go and play against a guy that's, you know, has trouble thinking about where the next meal is going to come from, and there's a loose ball on the court, and it's me against him or some other guy against him, it's like, man, he's going to be, you know, it's a different type of hunger, man. So this is why I always feel like, if you look at Maradona, if you look at, like, so many stories come to mind where, like, these people are like proper poverty, man. You know, and so for them, it's kind of like a different work ethic. It's not like, life is hard, man. And so training is easy. Like, it's just, you just put more into it, because your pain receptors are just all whack, because you're used to just being, you know, in discomfort all the time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting outside of the comfort zone, like, you have to push yourself. You have to go through some kind of struggle to grow as a person and get anywhere in life. So I think from that aspect, like, doing something difficult like you've been doing, it helps you grow as a person, not just in the gym, but mentally. Like, you can, you know, if I can do this, I can do anything. And that sort of mindset, because I've noticed even myself at times, if I don't have like a difficult goal that I'm going after, I feel like I get soft. I get like too relaxed and complacent, and I don't feel the energy or feel alive at all. And I'm sure, you know, a lot of people know what that's like. You just feel dead inside, where you're like, I'm just coasting. So
yeah, there's no growth out of comfort, man. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I have a tendency to be extreme in the way I think and the way I kind of approach things. But I always feel like, man, like, I always tell my wife, man, she always thinks we always kind of disagree on this. I say to people around me all the time, like, every time you wake up, man, you should have something planned in your day where you're going to have definite discomfort. Like, you need to plan it, because right now, like, my life is sweet, man. Like, I just described to you a situation where, you know, I kind of came from. Australia's nice, man. Comfort, we've made it, man. Like, it doesn't matter how much we have or we don't have. We have all the basics. So I always tell people around, man, you got to, like, plan some sort of discomfort. Like, have like a cold shower, or wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and train, or do something that's going to make you really uncomfortable, because that's going to be a palate cleanser for this. I mean, check this shit out. Freaking leather couch, man. Fucking awesome, man, you know? But, like, if I didn't go to the cold shower, you won't really, like, feel how nice this shit is, man. Like, it's awesome. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the contrast is what makes us realize what happiness truly is. You know, because I have images in my head about the tank rolling by, and I'm like, shit, man, like, I can see birds flying by here, you know? So it's like a contrast. But people, you know, they go from comfort to more comfort to more comfort, upgrading all the time. And then all of a sudden, this couch is a piece of shit. I've had this couch for 15 years, man. It's a piece of shit. Right? There's better shit out there now. But, once you go in the cold shower and you come out, you're like, oh, my Lord, this is like, I made it, man. Look at me, man. That's what it's like,
It just makes you appreciate things more. Life feels more real, and you feel better about things when you're pushing yourself. Like, it's 3-4 days a week. I'll run now anywhere from like 10 to 12 miles. Like I have 4 days, 3-4 days a week, 10 to 12 mile run. It takes like 2 hours almost. And that's not necessarily enjoyable, but it's like, I'm not like getting like, oh, I want to run. It's like, no, it's freaking hard. I'm doing it at 6 a.m., before most people even wake up. And it's like that challenge, it makes me grow, and it pushes me out of my comfort zone, because running doesn't come easy to me. I'm 220 pounds. I'm 100 kg. Like, it's not easy. Yeah. And it's the same way. Like, it's just, you have to have a goal. You have to have something to challenge you. And now that I'm not like lifting as heavy as I once was, I'm not, deadlifting 900 pounds. It's like, I'm still lifting, but I need these other pursuits. Like, I want to run a marathon. I want to do it in a fast time, and maybe a 100-mile race. And this stuff is very difficult. And it's like, I just want to grow, and I want to push myself. I want to continue to challenge myself. And it's exactly what you said, because when you get done with that kind of thing, after you're exhausted and you've been running for 2 hours, you're like, everything is more satisfying. Everything is more rewarding. You can appreciate the little things in life. Like, you sleep differently that night. You just, everything feels better. You're not taking for granted. That's probably the biggest thing that I'm taking away from, like, you don't take things for granted. You know how difficult things can be, and you no longer like, oh, it's just a bed, it's just a house, it's just a roof over my head, it's just food. Like, you appreciate things so much more. You're so much more grateful. That's how I think it is.
Absolutely, man. Like, you're spot on. Absolutely spot on. But I think, it takes a certain mind to understand that. Like, I don't know whether that's like emotional wisdom. I don't know what that is, but when I tell people I wake up, like, I do 12-hour shifts in ED, and the shift starts at 7 o'clock. So I got to get up at 4:30 in the morning on those days and train in my garage. And, I get to work, and people are like, and so we have our first break around 9 o'clock, 9:30 if we can. And so, I'm get my full meal out. People are just waking up at freaking 6:30. And by 9:30, I'm hungry. And so I get a freaking steak out almost. It's like a heavy meal. People are like, man, what the hell are you doing eating that so early? It's like, man, I've woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning, man. Like, this is like lunchtime for me, But why are you doing that, Ivan? Like, you don't need to do that. Just relax, will you? And I'm like, they kind of look at me, kind of like they feel sorry for me in a way. And I'm like, no, I reckon you're missing out, man. You're missing out because, like, that pellet cleanser, that challenge. Like, I feel amazing when I get through a session like that. Yeah, sure, it's tough some days when I wake up, like you wake up at 4 o'clock to run, whatever. You feel amazing afterwards, man. You feel like you've achieved something already, and the day hasn't even started. The sun hasn't even come out. And you already feel like you've done something because of that little challenge. And that does wonders for your mind, for your outlook for the rest of the day, your confidence, your patience, your composure. It all just kind of just goes from there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just everything, the day goes better. Like, when you're doing this hard stuff, when it's dark out, before people have waken up. Like, I was telling you earlier, like, I wake up at 4:20 every weekday, and I sleep in a little on the weekends, but there's just a different mindset when you get up that early. Like, I noticed before, and I think that's a big part of it. Like, I think one of the things, if I could get across to people, is waking up early just changes your whole outlook. Like, you're so much more productive. I know it's cliche, everyone's heard it, but waking up early, the challenge of that, if you can start doing that consistently, you'll do so much better. You'll hit your goals, because waking up early forces you to grab the bull by the horns, be productive before most people have even gotten up. I used to sleep until 9, 10 a.m. every day. And my lifestyle, I lifted, but it was so like lazy. Like, I just wasn't pushing myself. And this almost forces me. Like, I didn't do this by choice as far as getting up this early. It wasn't like one day I was like, I'm going to do it. It was more so I forced my hand having the gym with my wife, and she was taking care of our baby. So I had to come in for her and wake up and do all the things here at the gym. And it's just, so I didn't even like necessarily choose to do it, but ever since I've been doing it, I kind of love it. in a way, because it forces me to be productive. I can get so much more done. I can bang out these runs, and you sleep less. It's like I'm getting 5.5, maybe some nights 6 hours of sleep, but I get so much accomplished. Like I don't want to, I can't imagine trying to run for 2 hours in the middle of the day, but it's like if you do it before 8 a.m., it's not so bad.
No, definitely. I haven't been running for a very long time now. I mean, from the ages of like 10, basically, we came here, started playing basketball all up until 20. And so those 10 years was all about running. You just run 5, 6, 7, 10 Ks a few times a week. And I don't know whether you've experienced this already, you probably already have. It's like that runner's euphoria that you get after you stop running. Like you just feel so high after a hard run, man. I don't think, well, maybe high rep squatting gives that to you, but like after you've done a hard run, man, like I don't know what it feels like to do drugs and stuff, man, but man, I reckon that's what it feels like. You just feel happy, like because that discomfort that like we spoke about, it's ended, like it's finished, and now there's just your resting self, and it's just so comfortable. Especially when you do it in the morning, you feel like a king. Because everyone's still sleeping. You've come back from a hard run. It's awesome, man. I love that.
Yeah, the rest of the day feels better, and you feel so accomplished afterward. But like when I'm doing it, oftentimes the first 2-3 miles, my body feels like crap. Like it feels terrible. Everything feels off. My ankles, my joints, everything feels bad. And then about 3-4 miles in, I'll kind of settle in, and I go on autopilot, and it all just feels kind of. You're not even thinking at that point. You're just rolling, and I'm listening to podcasts and stuff during it, learning. So it just feels productive. And then when I'm done, like you said, the rest of the day is just like cake at that point. You just knocked out a 2-hour run. It's 8 a.m. Like it's a great feeling. So you can apply that, you guys, to like anything. That's what you've been doing with the squats. Now, have you missed a day of squatting in the last 953 days? Or is that like 953 straight? Haven't missed a day?
I haven't missed a day, man. I've had several periods where I've been sick, and those days are probably the closest I've come to missing. Like I had COVID, I think it was in March or April. I think it was March. And, I had fevers and whatnot. But even on those days, I came out and I squatted the bar. People say, oh, that's why it's squatting every day. Well, it's not Bulgarian squatting every day. I never said it was going to be Bulgarian. But for me, it's just the mental. Like, I need to come and touch the bar every day, no matter what. And so even on shit days, if you got fever or whatever, you're still blessed because, we just spoke about all this other mess with people like living in awful times. If you have the ability to come up and touch the bar, you can pretty much squat the bar. And if you're squatting that damn bar, even if it's empty, you are one blessed individual just because you are existing next to a barbell. That's how I view it, man. Oh, well, poor baby, you got a bit of a fever, do you? Start thinking about what other people around the globe are living like. It just belittles my little plight in that moment. I just, man, screw that. I'm going to go squat the bar. For 5, 10 reps, whatever, I'm going to squat the bar. Just so I can tell myself my life is great, regardless of what's happening. And, knock on wood and whatever, last 3 years have been amazing, man, and to me, the 953, streak is representation that my life is a blessed one. I've been able to come into a space where there's a barbell and I can squat it, and that to me is a celebration of life because, I don't know where we would have been or if I would even be here if I, left in Yugoslavia and God knows what would have happened all those years and with the bombings and whatever. So, I don't think about that every single time I touch the bar, but I think about even worse scenarios of people, the history and all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that pushes me, because I'm really the lucky one in this world, man. That's how I view it. And, it's not even about the physiological expression, training or whatever. It's all up here, man, because I reckon life is 90% here. It's how you deal with stress. It's how you take stress in. It's how you process that stuff. Because everyone's going to, life shits on everyone. There's not too many people that are always smiling in life. But if you got the opportunity to touch a barbell every single day, I reckon it's not too bad.
That's interesting. So it's not even like this physical thing. It's more mental that you have the privilege of being able to do that. And you think about how tough things have been in the past and how bad they could be. And you're like, I'm just appreciative of the fact I can do this. So it's the same with like, with anything. It's like, oh, you want to do a difficult task. You have the option to do that. You should be appreciative of that. It could be far worse. You might, people in this world don't have that option. I saw something the other day. I was listening to Jordan Peterson on Joe Rogan, and he literally said like the Western countries, like if you're making above minimum wage, you're in the 1% as far as income for the whole world. And like that kind of blew my mind, where it's like sometimes we think, oh, we could be doing better. Why are we not wealthy? Why don't we have this huge house and all this awesome stuff like we see some people? And it's like, hey, you're still in the 1% of the world as far as that goes, income and all that. And like most people have it way worse. And we just are living, we're so in such a small box. We're in our own worlds. We don't even realize like how good we have it. And I think that's kind of like the mental thing of like, this is why you need that challenge, because we have it so good now. The people of like, Europe and some parts of Europe and some parts of and Canada and the US and Australia, like we have it so good that we just forget what it's like to do something difficult. We lose touch with that. We just get into our phones and our computers and all this stuff that's right at our fingertips. We can just order food. We can get whatever we want. And like most of the world, that's not a thing. So
no, it's all about awareness, man. It's just about awareness. I think most of us, in a way, are really selfish creatures, because, we can say that we care, but a lot of us don't really care about what's happening over the fence, and so we have this tendency to just, look to improve our situation and just kind of look ahead. So, I am where I am, and I reckon that guy over there is better than what I am, and so I'll focus on him. But no one ever kind of stops to look down the mountain and be like, shit, man, like pretty high up as it is. Like really what I'm looking up is maybe like 5% or what you said, 1% above me, you know what I mean? But no one stops to look down the mountain like, shit, man, like there's a whole lot of people down there. I'm pretty high up on this damn mountain. And so people just kind of don't have that focus because we're just so localized, in our thinking. No one bothers to kind of process that stuff that we see that's happening in the world. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, I always say this to people, like maybe it's not a healthy mindset to think about this stuff every day, but definitely this kind of stuff runs through my mind all the time. And I get reminded all the time at work as well, man. Like, I work as a nurse in ER, man. And so if I don't think about these things on my own, I get reminded how lucky I am when I see some of these people, unfortunate people, man, who basically either been unlucky with some accident or they've just drawn that genetic shit card, and you see that stuff and you're like, fucking, I just want to feel like I want to run through that brick wall right now. Squatting is the hardest thing I'm going to do today? Fuck. Like, you're kidding me, man. You see some of the stuff, you see that, you're like, this bloke can't stand or walk or talk, and he's smiling at me, man. And you see that shit, you just feel embarrassed for even thinking about the things you're thinking about complaining. It's like, I want to run in here and do like 50 sets of freaking 50, man, and just like end myself, how lucky I am to even train, man. So it's all about perspective, and you can't really blame somebody that they don't have perspective firsthand. Like, you don't want to wish anybody to be in some sort of civil war situation where they have loved ones lost. But I think in this day and age, with this little device that's in front of us, it's very easy to get kind of informed, what's happening around the place, to see what our fellow humans are doing in Africa, in Asia, some parts of Europe, like we mentioned, people are doing it tough, man. And so that perspective it's only going to improve your life, because all of a sudden this freaking couch, man, is mint. It's a bloody good couch, man. But some people come in here and be like, Ivan, this is a disaster. You get this out. Like, it's embarrassing. Not to me, man. You get this over to some parts in Africa or Asia, man. This goes for quite a lot of money, man. So it's all about how you process information in your head. This is how I look at it, man. We can go to 50 different levels to this, but when I see somebody squatting 250 and I'm squatting 210, I don't go, I'm a piece of shit. Like, I'm still squatting all right, man. I look at the bloke, or look at me when I was day one. doing a lot better than that guy. So it's all about perspective. There's some people, no matter what they do, if you're squatting half a damn ton with the wrong mentality, you're not going to be happy. And that to me is just like, you're just chasing your tail, man. You know, that's how I view it anyway. I don't know whether that's a winner's mentality or whatever, but I think the ultimate goal for all of us is to freaking be happy. And when you close your eyes and go to bed at night, you just want to be happy with what's happening. And I think having these larger, kind of more global views of life is always more healthier and just more happier.
So would you say like the main thing you think leads to happiness is being appreciative? That's kind of what I'm getting the sense of, like being appreciative of what you do have rather than always looking at what you don't have. And you know, as sometimes we have to see the struggle others are going through and see suffering to really realize like how good we have it. Like it could be so much worse. And we get so caught up, like I said, we get so caught up in what's going on in our world that we don't even realize everyone else. Like if you just even walk through a grocery store, just take a look at everyone and just try to see that individual. What are they going through? Just like look at each individual as an individual, as opposed to just mindlessly walking by. And you're like, everyone is struggling. Everyone is struggling with something. We're all having some sort of struggle. So we can relate in that regard. We can relate as far as we're all going through hard things. Some people are obviously going through harder things than others, but that should make you more appreciative of what you do have. And even if we you know, it'd be lying if we said like, oh, we don't ever want more. We don't ever get jealous or want, you know, better things that other people have. Like, yeah, that's a natural part of being a human. But at the same time, you can't lose that awareness of how bad things could be or how good you have it. And when you simplify it to that regard, it's things like having a couch, things like having a bed to sleep in at night, having a roof over your head and food on the table. Like the most simple aspects of life you can really be thankful for, because it could be worse. And it's something you always have to keep in mind.
Always. It's an uncomfortable thought to kind of put yourself in other people's shoes. And maybe that's why people don't do it. And they just kind of stick to their lane and worry about that. But I think there's benefit for you, you know, to kind of consider what other forms of existence is out there. That's kind of how I've always looked at it. I mean, I was kind of forced to initially, right? Because I didn't really pick my parents. You know, my parents didn't pick with their parents, and we just kind of found ourselves in a freaking disaster zone. You know, and so you get exposed to that, you know, and that exposure kind of makes you think about certain things and process certain kind of stresses in a way. And then the ultimate, man, you know, the ultimate is, I hate talking about this, but I always say to people all the time, man, and it's dark as hell, and I don't think a lot of people even want to hear this, but I don't think a day goes by that I don't think about death. And as scary of that word is, it is like the most grounding, the most palate cleansing, the most, I don't know what the word is, most focusing, appreciating thought that I have. If I don't know how far you go into the future, there's going to be a tombstone with my name, my date of birth, my death. So I have that thought in my mind. That shit's coming. I think a lot of us go through life thinking that this shit's going to go forever. It's not. We're all going to, there's one thing that's promised, right? We're all going to the earth or whatever other means. So when I think about that, you know, I've had quite a lot of people that I've lost in my life, you know, and I go to the cemetery and I look at that and I almost imagine my name on that kind of stone. And I think to myself, all right, let's reverse engineer this shit so that I don't waste today. I don't waste tomorrow. Because this shit is flying by, man. Like, you know, you've got a kid now as well, don't you, man? You know, I've got a 5 and a 3-year-old. This shit happened like this, man. It's like 5 years gone. I'm like, damn, man. We just played video games for like 2 hours before we went to bed. Life is flying by, man. And that thought kind of makes me accountable for the time that I have. Like, that doesn't mean I start, you know, being super success driven or whatever. It's just, it makes me present in the moment and appreciative, once again, that word, where I am and, you know, how much time I have in life and, you know, where I'm headed, because it's a dark thought. And I realize this, you know, my close people around me know that I am like this, but you know, it's my upbringing, it's the work that I do, you know, seeing death on a regular basis, seeing suffering, grieving, all that. It's kind of like you'll be a numbskull to go through those experiences and not think about your own demise. It's like you are not this video game character. You're just like everyone else, man. Shit can happen, and shit does happen. And I think that thought to me just brings me so much happiness, knowing that, you know, there's a certain amount of, you know, ticks on the clock left. So let's be happy and let's do stuff and just waste it. I guess a lot of people might have that same thought and feel depressed and freaking depressed like crazy. But for me, it's the opposite. I just feel it makes me just accountable and gives me this urgency to do shit. So when somebody comes up to me and then gives me a negative criticism or wants to put me down, it's like, I don't have time for your shit, man. There's death coming. You know, it gives me this courage. It gives me this. I don't give a shit what people have to say about me. I just kind of let it loose. And this is why when I make my videos, people tell me all the time, man, like, "Why you're so confident, man? Like, you're so confident in front of the camera. You just speak." I don't give a shit, man. We're all gonna die. Why would I give a shit what you have to say, man? Like, you know, time's ticking, man. Like, how much time do you want to waste feeling embarrassed, or how much time do you want to waste, you know, trying to be nice? Man, screw that shit. Just be yourself. That's kind of how I look at it.
Well, it's funny. That was what I was going to ask you next. I was going to ask you that very thing. Like, how does death play a role in your life as far as the things you see in the ER and all that? And I think I have a similar perspective in that regard. I'm not, you know, in touch with it on a daily basis like you are, but I've had the thought, I'm like, this is all passing us by. Like, we have to have some sense of urgency with what we want to do and what we want to accomplish, and, you know, how we want to live our life. And we should be more appreciative that every day we've got another shot at this, because it goes by quick. Like, I remember being 20 years old and now being 30. It's like that decade flew by. And a lot of times we're just living so passively that we don't actually appreciate anything. We don't actually live in the present. We live in the future and we live in the past. Too many people are living in the future and too many people are living in the past. You're looking at how good things were, or you're looking at what you want, and you're not taking advantage of that day. And even I'm guilty of that. Like, we're all guilty of that. But the more aware you can be of that by looking at death and using that as a tool, as far as this is not, you know, an infinite ride. Like, it's going to end at some point. So we have to take each day and make the most of it, and just try to appreciate the little things. Try to appreciate spending time with your wife and your kids and your, you know, your dogs and things like that, and just being around people in general and trying to make the biggest difference you can. Because that's something I've been leaning into more as well, where it's like, you know, we may not be able to change the entire world, but obviously we are around people every day, and we can try to improve their lives and try to improve ours and try to get certain messages across to make the world a better place. Because the world is filled with a lot of evil now, and it's filled with a lot of bad things. And I don't like the direction a lot of things are going. As far as everything that's going on, I don't like that. I don't trust a lot of politicians. I don't trust a lot of what's being done. I don't trust a lot of people. But I look at it and I'm like, well, on my scale, I can do what I can do. I can try to lead people down a better road and try to stay positive and encourage people. So I'm going to do my part, and maybe that'll spread. That's all you can do. So.
Yeah, that's spot on, man. You know, if everyone did that, the world would be a better place. You know, if you just start off, you know, being really good with your own family. You know, I think if you're failing there, then don't worry about what's happening with the neighbor or the community. You know, do good there. You know, whatever it takes, man. Kind of fix your relationship with your closest people, and that will radiate positivity, you know, everywhere. This is what some people, I don't want to say all people, don't understand, is that positivity, man, like it's infectious. It really is, man. You know, I've got some good friends in my life, man. You know, I freaking won the lotto when I met those blokes. But the bond that we have and the trust that we have is just, it's special. Like it's always growing every single day, because it's like there's so much positivity around. It's like And it just spreads. It spreads. Like, I have that experience with them, and then I want to spread it over here as well. But if you just want to be that beacon of positivity, it just radiates. It radiates this energy. I can't really explain it. I don't think science can ever encapsulate what the hell that is. But I don't know if, like, when you work part of a team, and I certainly work with a big team where I kind of work, if there's one bad egg in an environment, you can feel the energy. You can slice it, man. Like, it's just tension, But when everyone's positive, it's like easier breathing, and I guess if you extrapolate that across the world, you can see how these, I don't know, the good and evil, or positive and negative energy, how this can happen. It's kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, it's almost like the movies and the music industries. It's almost like they celebrate this idea of revenge. I'm better than you. Look at my Ferrari. You're driving a freaking Toyota. It's like wherever you turn, people are celebrating not unity, but rather segregation. And so our kids are growing up in that shit, and they're like, I don't want to share with you, man. This is my shit. And it's kind of like when the top, like they're talking about politicians, when they are beaming negativity, the platform that they have, you and I have a pretty good platform, but it's nothing of what they have, right? So their reach is humongous. So if they want to like pound freaking millions of people with negativity, that's what they do. And it's unfortunate. Not all people of power are like that, but there's a few freaking bad eggs around the place that are just changing the global mechanics. One person can fuck everything else up. It's just insane. But some people just want that, I don't know, they want that self-power consuming. They don't care about someone else,
Well, I think a lot of it is greed as far as like politicians are concerned. I think a lot of it is greed, and they don't really have our best interest in mind. If they're getting their money and they're getting, what they want to live comfortably and live their lifestyle, they don't look out for us. They're not looking out for the everyday common man. They're looking out for their own interests. And I'm not saying all of them, but it's a very selfish pursuit, and greed is influences all this stuff because corporate companies get involved, paying people off and, pushing certain agendas. And then the real powerful people of the world have tremendous influence, like the billionaires and such. And it's just they're definitely involved in all this stuff that goes on and the way things are presented. And it's sketchy. And I think people are waking up, though. People are understanding, like, this is not all for our common good and all that. There's not, it's not all. I think people are waking up, but that could be a tangent of its own.
Yeah, definitely.
What were you gonna say there?
Oh no, I wanted to say definitely. I think the age that we're in, social media is not all gravy, but I think with living in this information age, we're less susceptible to these powerful people because we have information. You and I are just talking freaking opposite ends of the globe. So I think that kind of enables people to get a bit more informed and to be less of a blinker on their head. So there's more tools to kind of make the right decision with. Even though we can talk about the social media and everything being filtered again. But I think we're moving in the right direction, I feel, even though it's kind of hard to measure that. I don't know. It's hard, man. It's hard because, like, I came out of war. And, when I was 10 years old, I thought I came out of the worst freaking place, at the time. And then as I was growing up, I learned about Vietnam, Korea, Somalia. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. This never ended, man. There's always trouble somewhere, man. There's always some version of Ivan, 10-year-old, somewhere going through the same type of shit over and over again. And now, a few months ago, man, like, they were talking about Third World War. It's like, what are we doing, man? Like, it's just cyclical, man. It doesn't really matter who is in office. It's almost like power corrupts. I started thinking to myself, like, even if I was in the damn office, maybe the power would corrupt me as well. How can so many people in history all be bad, man? Like, damn.
I 100% agree. Power corrupts, greed corrupts, money, all that. And it's like, it's never enough. That's the thing with human nature. It's never enough. You're never satisfied. You're never going to be satisfied. If you don't reflect on things in the proper manner, like we've discussed, you're never going to be satisfied. It's never going to be enough. You're never going to have a big enough house. You're never going to have a nice enough car. You're never going to have enough money. And that's going to corrupt you. And it's going to make you skew away from your ethics and morals. And that's what happens. People get power, people get money, and they run away from their ethical code, their moral code. And it all goes to shit, basically, like the world, like we're seeing. And then we get into these situations where we're even talking about the possibility of a World War III and globalization and all this because people are corrupt. And I think it's pure evil. And in my opinion, it's pure evil that we're even breaching these subjects as far as these people have put us in these positions. But it's hard to say, like anybody in that position, it would be tough to stay grounded. You definitely would have to, it'd be tough, but I'm not justifying any of it. It's crazy to me. I hate it. I don't like it. I wish there was more people looking out for the common good of everybody, but it's tough. We have to do what we can do on an individual level and try to be the best we can be because they're not looking out for us. So
I think the best things to do, like I said, is you said as well, just focus on your own self and the people you love and the friends. And I think through that kind of means the positivity will kind of rub off to other people. That's all we can really do, man. You know.
Now, are you religious at all or anything?
So I guess the first 15 years of my life, 16, 17 years of life, like I kind of grew up in that Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, going to church pretty much every Sunday, all of that. And as I was going through and kind of learning and becoming a man, if you want to call it that, started learning about the history, learning about the world, some of the things that we've already spoken about. I started really having a difficult time going into the church and seeing the hierarchy that exists there as well. Started having a real difficult time, and I started thinking about the blood on the hands of religion as a whole. And I don't know if I've come up with an answer for myself. I definitely believe in God. I know that for a fact. I definitely feel that down in my core. But I think religion has been infiltrated by some of these negative people that we've spoken about. And even a place of worship now is not what it used to be. If you think about all the way back to the Crusades, jihads, all this stuff, they've used some of these texts for the greater evil. And so that kind of rubs me up the wrong way in terms of religion, because ultimately I feel like it just only divides people. It's funny. Like my best friend is Muslim, right? He grew up as a Muslim, Bosnian, right? Arch enemy, right? So we should be killing each other right now, yet we live a few houses away from each other. That's how close we are. And so he grew up a different religion, and we've come up to the same conclusion. Like our relatives, many of our relatives have died with the tensions created by not the texts, but the people using the text as some sort of motivator for you to pick up a rifle and go kill. That's where religion, for me, I struggle with it. But I think that's only the minority that's abusing those communities across the world. So I believe in God, definitely believe in God, but I struggle with it sometimes, man. I'm not going to sit here to tell you that I've kind of come up with a final decision in my mind. I have religious people around me, family as well, and we have these discussions, and it's left a bad taste in my mouth. My experience in my life for 33 years, and I've got a bad taste in my mouth from the things that I've seen and heard. And these people then utter religious sentiments, words in the act of doing atrocities. And I don't know what that is. It just doesn't sit well with me.
No, I think that's a good perspective because, like, obviously, I believe in God. I'm a Christian, believe in Jesus Christ died for our sins and all that. And using religion to weaponize each other and take each other down. I don't believe that's the way to go. Like, I can respect if someone's, you know, a Muslim. I'm not going to like want to go to war with them. Like, I respect everybody. And I feel like a lot of people say, okay, I'm a Christian. And then they have all these vices and live this sinful life and do all these bad things. And not say I'm perfect or anything. I have my own issues, but I generally can say I try to live an ethical life, live moral, treat people well. Like, I try to strive to be a better person on an individual level with everyone I come across. And that to me is how like religion should be, like how it should make you want to be better and keep you in check from trying to lead a sinful life, a hedonistic life. Like, you should not, it should be a positive. It should influence people to do better. And it's not something where I want to like push it on people and be like, oh, you know, you have to convert, or like, I want to be a positive influence and be a beacon of light where people see that and say, okay, that has some merit to it. And that's something I'd be interested in learning about. But I don't like the approach of like shoving things at people and forcing things at people and scare tactics and using it for war and for ostracizing people. And I don't like any part of that. I don't think that's I think it gets taken out of context and taken and weaponized, and to a degree,
Yep.
just kind of like you were saying. So there's different approaches to it, but that's something I feel pretty strongly about. Like, I think if you truly believe and want to use and try to be as good of a Christian or whatever your religion is as possible, like, that should make you strive to be a better person, ethically, morally, all that level. It shouldn't be this thing where it's like used for atrocities, like you said, and scare tactics and all this. So it does get, and that's where it gets a bad rap. It gets a bad rap from the abuses within the Catholic Church and all that, and all that's come out with that, and this stuff. People don't like. Here's the other thing: people don't like when you're trying to say how virtuous you are and all that, and you're trying to do all these things, and then it's like you got all these skeletons in your closet, and you're doing all these sins and doing all these bad things. It's like, it's very hard for people to give it any credibility when you're not doing your part to live how you're saying you should. Like, it's very hypocritical, and that's another thing people have a problem with. So I understand the bad rap of things and such, but that's why I feel like it's an individual thing where we have to do our part with it. So I don't know.
The existence of like that God type of feeling, you know, as I've kind of grown up, that part has only solidified itself in my belief. You know, like I said, you know, being around death, you know, putting people in body bags, you know, all that stuff. Like, I don't know, man. There's a feeling there. There's a presence there. There's an energy there, definitely. But religion, I've had people in my life who have come and basically bashed me, I guess, with words, made me feel bad for not going to the gym, going to church. The gym is my new church. So from going to the church regularly anymore, and when I kind of voice my opinions, you know, negative feelings come up, or, you know, you need to kind of make peace with God, you need to do this, otherwise bad shit's gonna happen. You know, like you need the church to be a good human being. And what I always tell people, and this is what I kind of don't understand, and some people have tried to explain it to me, but I still don't understand. It's like, okay, so only Christians go to heaven. Let's just say that. So what happens to people that never had the opportunity to become Christians? People in the middle of the Amazon, or some like Eskimos somewhere who don't have Christianity at all brought to them. Do they all just go to hell? And I've had people say, yeah, they do. I know some pretty nasty people that call themselves Christian, so they go to heaven. And so there must be a lot of nice people out in the world who are not, haven't been introduced to a religion. So there's this idea of they just rock up to hell and just burn forever. That to me is kind of like, man, like, this is not the 11th century, man. Like, we are much more of higher intellect now, and so some of these ideas I struggle with my brain, even though I say that I do believe there's a God, but I don't like the way religion is presented. You know, that's the thing that really bothers me.
Yeah, and I think too, people use it as a justification mechanism where it's like, I am a Christian, therefore all is forgiven, and they just go on doing the same stuff they were doing as far as these negative things and living these destructive lives and things like that. And it's like, I don't think it exactly works like that. I don't think you can just say, I'm religious, I'm a Christian, and then you can just go on living like the way you were. Like, no, that should mean you're striving to be better. You're striving to live a more virtuistic lifestyle. That should be how it's done. Like, I don't think you just get a pass because you claim that. And there's certain elements where I think it's abuse of basically the text, and people take things and just use it as justification. And like, it's the same thing like we were talking about. Why are there wars? Why are there any wars? There's wars because there's greed. It's plain and simple. Wars stem from greed. It stems from people they want more. It's never enough. Egos, things like that. That's why war is a thing. And we as humans are never satisfied. That's why war happens. So I don't know. It's a lot to think about. I could go on all day, but those are just kind of some of my thoughts. And I don't know.
Well, I don't think anyone really knows the full answer. You know, this is the complexity of the world, and like these tough questions. I don't think there is a real answer to this, and this is why. I mean, let's just be honest, man. People have gone to war. Well, this is what kind of the advert was, you know, back like 200, 300, 400 years ago, because of different wording in the text. You know, I'm sure the people that the text is talking about, I don't think that book is asking us to go kill everyone. You know, but it's a good thing to do, like any text.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with you on that. It's I don't think religion weaponized in any form. How is that good? Like, I don't ever get that, where it's like, I know there's been, like, the Bible even talks about there's obviously been wars and conflicts and such, and that's documented. But I don't think religion in itself, any religion, how can you justify it by like violence and spreading evil and killing people? Like, how is that justifiable in any regard? It isn't. So anybody, I don't care what your religion is, to be, you know, almost seeking out violence is ridiculous. Like, there's one thing, and I do think it's one thing to almost like defend yourself if someone comes at you, but like being the aggressor and conquering and all this stuff, that's crazy to me. I don't know.
Funny thing,
it's
the funny thing is, man, like, who does history mostly remember? Some of these conquerors, freaking mass murderers. Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, Napoleon. Yeah, no worries, man. Like, this is what history remembers. Genghis Khan, what is it, like 1/8 of the world population has his genes. Like, that's how, you know, how many seeds he spread. But that's what history remembers. Oh, the great conqueror, you know, the civilizations of this, that, the other. It's always just who killed more people. Basically, like, oh, the Roman Empire was vast. It was great. Yeah, man, they just went around killing everyone. Any empire. But that's what history remembers. Like, this was the greatest empire of all time. Julius Caesar, hurrah. How many people has he killed? He's a great figure in all of history. It's kind of like so weird to kind of think about that, man. It's like the common folk almost are not sexy enough, or no one cares how many potatoes you grew, how many heads you chop. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, the world in general rewards evil and negative things, and like that's what gets rewarded here on this earth. And you just have to be aware of that. And there's nothing we can necessarily do too much. I mean, we can do our part on an individual level, but obviously that only goes so far. But I think it's almost like we've talked about through this whole conversation, the awareness of things, the awareness of how things are abused, how power corrupts, how appreciation is necessary to get the most out of life. Like, these are the things you need to know. Awareness, you need to be aware of all these things, and that will help you kind of stay on the right path. And we all have things to work on. We all sin. We all do things we shouldn't do, but you should strive to do better all the time. Try to do better, try to live better, and try to influence people in a more positive manner. So that kind of would be my takeaway from everything. But yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I could talk about that stuff all day. It's interesting. Now, kind of circling back though, like, is there ever going to be a point you think where you're going to finally break the streak, or you're going to be like, I'm content with this and I'm going to move on to something else? Like, do you think, kind of like for me with powerlifting, I did it for so many years where I hit these huge numbers and I'm still lifting, but I've kind of moved on. I kind of, I came off steroids and just completely pivoted with my lifestyle and who I am as a person. And do you think time will come for you, and like what would be next? And is there anything else you'd want to seek out or be interested in as far as that?
Now I've got to think about like your journey. I think the distinguishing feature is that you basically, it's almost like you hit the ceiling. You're one strong dude, man. Like pulling 900 or like all that, that's crazy stuff to me, man. Like, that's incredible. So I guess once you reach, let's say, the top, maybe it's easier for you to kind of be like, all right, I've done that. It's kind of like, some of these sporting guys, like Michael Jordan walks away, 3 rings, I'm done, man. Like, I've done it. But I doubt he would have left if he never won any of the rings. You know what I mean? He would have still had that hunger or the emptiness. You pulling 900 and seeing some of the stuff I've seen you do over the years, man, like, whoa. Like, that's insane. For me, I've never felt that. Like, I've never felt like I've reached this limit. I don't know what the limit is for myself, my body. But I've never kind of felt satiated. I've never felt, I've done anything that, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, for me, it's not even about that. It's kind of more like the journey. It's kind of like the journey versus destination kind of thing. And so the days keep rolling by. And I was saying to my mate, it's almost like it's annoying me that it's such a big number. Like, I always feel like missing one day and then just going back to day one. Just because too many numbers, man. Like, it's 953. Like, that's too many days, man. Like, makes it feel like it's like it seems like I'm going for this marathon. Whereas for me, I don't give a shit about the days. I just want to come and touch the bar every single day and play with it and squat it. The mental journey for me, like the thing that the bar offers me to go to work and be so much better in every single, element, attribute, it calms me. It's a relief, it gives me focus. It's difficult for me to put a few kilos on the bar. Very difficult. So that kind of mental side is always going to be there for me. And I genuinely, this is kind of the other side of the coin, I genuinely feel I want to work this shit out. And it's funny right now, I speak to people all the time. It's like I'm always onto something with this shit. I always feel like I've worked something out that's going to make this a little bit better or whatever. But I feel like I can improve with this. And I feel like because I train every single day, I have so many points of contact with it. And I can always, it's almost like another data set every single day. And I've got these big journals that I've kept since day one. And it's not just sets and reps. It's how I felt. And there's so much data. And I often go through it and read and I study. And I feel like in these 900 odd days, I've learned so much about my body, about the muscles, about the weaknesses, what improves what, these connections, that to me is the drive. It's kind of like I get all these benefits physically, and I'm so involved with it mentally, trying to work out these things my way, kind of plodding along and kind of learning what something does to my body. So I'm squatting every day, let's say work up to a single, come back down with a few the doubles or triples. For the next week or so, I'm going to just throw in RDLs. I'm going to work with sets of 10 RDLs, and I'll see what the effect of that exercise is going to be on how I feel. And over the 900 days, man, I've run so many different combinations of so many different things, and I've found patterns of what's worked, what hasn't. And that to me, it's almost like a video game. You know, it's like I'm so involved with it. I don't know when I'm going to stop. I think this is going to be ongoing for I don't know how long. And even if I miss a day because of whatever happens in life, God forbid, nothing bad, I'll probably get back to it anyway. You know, I didn't start this because of anyone other than, I don't even know why I started recording this piece, man. Honestly, it was a fluke. That day one, I don't even know why I recorded that workout. Or the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth. It was just like, I'll record it and so I can have a look at it. And then I was like, well, I should keep recording this because, well, in 5 years' time, it'd be pretty cool to come back and be like, oh, what's Ivan 5 years ago? What did he look like? And then I thought, well, shit, man, why don't I talk into these videos? You know, what was I thinking at the time? You know, so it's kind of like I want to go back on day 33. That's what I reckon. That's what I thought. That's what I did. And this is how I looked. This is how strong I was. That's how it started, man. It was just like a little project. It was supposed to be a diary, man. This is the crazy thing. It was supposed to be a diary. And then one by one, people started like watching. And then day 377 happened, man. My videos were getting like 10, 15 views. If I got 50 views, it was a viral video for me, man. 50 views for me, it was like, call mom, dad, I've got 50 views. And then day 377 happened, man. I woke up in the morning and my mate left me like 20, 50, like lots of messages. And I was like, shit, man, what happened? Like, and he's like, dude, your video's gone crazy, man. Like, log in. Because you set up kind of quite late. I had like 20, 30,000 views. Can't remember. I think it was like 30,000 views, something like that, by the morning. The algorithm took it and ran it. Skinny ass me, squatting 180 for one, barely struggling with this thing, racking the shit. My daughter walks past. That's the video. It's 15 seconds to short. 50,000 views. All of a sudden, I'll go from 300 subscribers to 1,000 in like a week. Bah, 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 bah. Now there's a community. Pete, I'm not in your level. This is the weirdest thing. Like, you are elite. And I always thought to myself, like, it's almost embarrassing. Initially, I was kind of embarrassed. Why are people like asking me shit? Like I'm just a normal guy, man. Like, I'm not strong. I'm not anything. And then over the kind of the course of the journey, I kind of worked out, well, yeah, I'm not Pete, you know, or whoever, but I'm doing this and I know this much. You know, some of you guys know this much. I know this much. And when somebody asks me a question, I can offer them what I know. And so I started feeling a little bit better about myself. Like, no, you don't have to be a gold medalist to offer some help. And that's kind of how I became comfortable with existing in this social media kind of platform.
Yeah, and I think like you're selling yourself short because the mental fortitude to basically squat every day for 3 years is something that almost no one could do or no one would be willing to do. And that's so impressive. That's what it doesn't even matter what the numbers are. It's just that journey. And then hearing who you are as a person, you're such a deep person with so much to offer as far as your views. And, you know, you're a tremendous person and people want to hear that. And that's why people connect with you. You know, it's not the numbers. No one cares about the numbers. It's so much more than that. And I mean, do you have like an ultimate number on squat? Like, is it 300 kilos? Like, what is there a number you're striving for? Or is that almost so far off? It's like, okay, I'm trying to get to 250 or What are you thinking there?
So back when I made some of these goals, I was very green and I didn't really understand much about much. So I saw Clarence Kennedy squat 300 raw, basically. I don't know if you know Clarence Kennedy. Yeah, the fella. So like when I was 23, 24, 25, I kind of learned of him. I'm a basketball. I don't really know much about anything, you know, the difference between powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, all of that. But I saw him squat and I kind of thought he kind of looked kind of like me. Like he's much, you know, stronger than me or whatever. But it doesn't look like a big guy. Like, you know, he doesn't look like he can squat that. And I thought, that is such a beautiful thing. He's got full range of motion, ass to grass, pause. Like, wow, like it was so appealing to me. And then I started looking into other, and I saw Klokov, 250 pause front. And I thought, my God, like coming from the basketball world, you know, seeing Michael Jordan, some of my idols there, like I saw that and I was like, man, that's on par for me. Like it's so amazing. So I thought, well, I can't probably be ever like Klokov because the guy looks like he's freaking jacked out of his head. You know, I'm like, I can't be that. But I thought Clarence Kennedy, when I first saw him, I was like, he looks like a natural dude. Like to me, at least, years down the track, I learned that he wasn't. I was kind of disappointed by that because he kind of like, well, if a guy of elite genetics, elite training from the age of like 5, whatever he was, if his top was like, I don't know, what, 320 or whatever his squat was, like what chances do I have picking it up at 25? Like it's not going to be good. This is years later that kind of worked that out. But when I opened the channel, I kind of said, look, I want to squat 300, deadlift 300, and I want to bench 180. I mean, these figures, now that I'm kind of 7, 8 years in, from that moment, I'm like, I don't know if that's ever going to be possible the way I want to squat, like, you know, ATG, no belt, in my connies, you know. I don't know, maybe it is possible, but like as time progresses, I'm more and more doubting that. Because if Clarence Kennedy, you know, squatted 320 and the history that he has, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get there. Albeit, you know, Clarence never really trained for squatting strength. He was an Olympic weightlifter. But 300 kilos, I feel like I can do that. For some reason, I don't know, the more I squat, the better deadlifting I get. It's really weird. So my deadlift is 265 now. I reckon I could put on another 40 kilos on the deadlift in the next 10 years' time. That's probably the most confident one that I feel. But the others, I don't know. You know, that's kind of the goal. That's the kind of holy grail. Whether I get there or not, I don't know. Honestly, I'm doubting it.
If you knew that like taking days off every week would get you to 300, would you do it?
Right. The gut feeling is like, I'm not really married to the idea of squat every day. Like I'm not like some madman. That's kind of like, that's my, how do you say it? That's my image. Like, I don't really care about that. But I like it for the sake of all the other shit that kind of offers me. The immediate thought that I had when you said that, I was like, well, I can still come in and squat just an empty bar because I just want to have that discipline to do it. Because honestly, I don't really know, like, what would I don't know. Like, I feel like it adds so much more to me as a whole when I have something of like this strictness. I have to do it. But yeah, maybe like this time next year, I'll be doing 3 days a week squatting. Like, I'm not really that crazy about it, you know, just for the sake of the streak. And like I said to you, I almost like feel like just ending, even before 1,000. Honestly, I just want to end it. So I prove to myself that I'm not doing this thing because I'm doing this thing. It's kind of like, it's weird, man. It's kind of like the opposite way. I wish I never started counting almost, I feel like, because it's kind of turned into, oh, you have this pressure to get to 1,000. I don't feel anything. It's whatever. I don't care what the number is. I just like training every day. So maybe instead of squat every day, it becomes training every day. I don't know. Like you, I'd love to go for a run. Like I thought about that. Like I missed the fitness days of my life in the past. But I don't know. Like obviously, it's probably more likely if I squatted less, right? That's kind of the logic here. If I squatted less, I'll probably more likely to get to that goal.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think from a recovery standpoint, but I almost am getting the, I've gotten the sense that the whole squatting every day thing is almost more than just a physical thing. Obviously, it's a mental thing. It's a lot deeper than that, which we've kind of touched on. So I do understand from that regard. Now, how do you like balance, with work and family and the lifting? Like, how do you balance it all? Because you're a pretty busy guy with the shifts of being 12 hours and then the squatting and all that kind of stuff. And I know you got a family. So how do you balance it?
So when I'm working, on the days I'm working, I make sure that I don't get in the way of my family at all. So on a work day, I get up before they even wake up. And so I'm not in their way at all. So the only thing that suffers on days that I work is my sleep. So I make sure I spend the kind of afternoon with them, whatever. And then we go to bed when we go to bed. I just wake up at 4:20, 4:30. It used to be 4:15 when we lived in another house further away from the hospital. But I get up and I train there. So work days, I train at 4 a.m. basically, or 4:45 is kind of when I start touching the bar. And then on non-working days, I once again speak to my other half, and I'm like, "What are we doing for the day?" If it's a Saturday, Sunday, it could be another 5 a.m. I just kind of try to work around them. That's kind of how I look at it. But since the YouTube thing happened, you got to remember, like 377 days, no one watched. Basically, it was just me. More than a year squatting alone, no one giving a shit, and so it was just making those videos really quickly, less kind of not quality, but less involved kind of video making. And but now having like 100,000 subscribers and having a bit of revenue coming from that, I've actually decreased my hours at the hospital. So I'm not working now as I used to be. I've taken 1 day off per week. And so it's kind of made it a little bit of, it's almost like a hobby, but it's work that I really, really love. And so it's kind of like, it's almost like the conversation with the wife is not so much anymore. It's a little hobby that you do on the side. It's like this actually is working to sustain our family. And so there's a bit of leeway. So I can go to the gym in the middle of the day, say.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. I when I was really pushing the channel hard back in like April and May, I'm still, growing. It's just slower. Yeah, it was a pretty nice little bonus. Now it's like, I mean, it was a nice little bonus. Let's put it that way, as far as the ad revenue. So I totally get what you're
No,
saying there.
when you were doing those videos, like it was amazing. Like I thought to myself, man, Pete's hammering it away. And then like some of you were talking about how you're doing the gym thing as well. And I was like, man, how's this man doing all this? Because having your own business, I mean, I've never had my own business, but it's kind of like that's 24/7 almost, isn't it? Like it's you can't just hand over at the end of the shift and piss off home. It's like it stays with you the whole time.
Yeah, it's just wearing a lot of hats, and that's where I kind of had to find a balance where I still want to push the channel and I'm growing it, but just not quite as at a rapid rate, because I'm wearing the hats of like I'm a personal trainer, I'm running group classes, I'm getting here at 4:45 every day. I'm waking up at 4:20, similar to you, doing all my online clients with emails, and then I'm still trying to post some videos. So it's just like, and then I also, I have a daughter now who's 3 months old. It's like I'm trying to keep up with all this and then still find time to either run or train every day. When it's just like something, you have to, it's tough. It's long days. So I'm kind of in the same boat where I just try to find a balance and get the stuff over with in the morning. And it's exactly how it is. But
Yeah. It's I remember this one lady. I'll tell you a story. We were sitting in the material one shift. It was a lunch break. We started chatting with this lady I never met before, and she was saying how she had a business. She had a business before, so she was a nurse. Then her and her husband started a business, and now she's back to being a nurse. And she goes, "When I was a nurse, I worked 8 hours. When I started my business, I worked 24 hours. And so we gave that up so I could go back to working 8 hours again." She said, like, the business was just insane. Like, literally, you need to stop work at some point. But they were taking home the work and the payroll and all this stuff. She was like, it was just, we were working so many freaking hours. It was like minimum wage, less than minimum wage.
That's the thing people don't realize. Like we have this gym and it's pretty small. It's like 3,600 square feet, and it doesn't. I mean, there's no profit, guys. It's that's the sad part. Like having the gym, it's not profitable. It's you pay your overhead as far as your rent, your utilities, things of that sort, and there's basically nothing left to show after that. Like it's kind of depressing because you put all this time in and there's no profit. Like if it was just the gym, we wouldn't even be able to pay our bills at the house. So my coaching business online, like that's what pays our home bills, and the gym just kind of like pays for itself. So you pour all this time in, all this effort, and it's like a community where you want to sustain it, but the actual profit of it is nothing. It's very humbling. And that's kind of the hard thing with small businesses, as far as ones that have a tangible location and have overhead. They're often not very profitable. So it's just one of those things where it's like labor of love, so to speak. And it's tough. It's tough.
I've always dreamt about, I mean, having a gym to me, like without even knowing anything about it, it's like the coolest thing. Like if you can open up your own gyms, like wow. But then, like as I say to my family all the time, my friends, I'm nowhere in a position to do any of that. Like I don't have the means. But I would hate to make my hobby a job. Like I would hate to kind of make something that I love with no strings attached, to make it like work and for me to stress over it. That's kind of the risk that I feel. But the title of having a gym, wow, it's like a dream kind of thing,
Yeah, it has its pros and cons for sure, and it's crazy. I never thought I'd be doing this, but we kind of stumbled into this. My wife, it's really her. It was her thing, and she loves it, and we keep it going for that reason. She loves it. She loves the people. She loves the community of it. So I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know it's like after 10, you get up early. So I'm just gonna see here. So let me touch on one last question before I let you go here, because I don't want to keep you up all night. How are you able to avoid overtraining and hit PRs like with your training?
So for that, one word answer is auto regulation. And what that means is, I don't really know. It's this idea that I learned about from a book called Squat Every Day, written by Matt Perryman. That was kind of the book on this. And I read stuff about a book called Power to the People by Pavel Tsatsouline. Those two texts really are the foundational ideas that I used to kind of formulate this, and then I used Abhijayev's kind of Bulgarian. I kind of took all these ideas, put it together. So some things that I try to do is, so no coffee, no pre-workouts, no loud music, no psych-ups, no people slapping me in the face, no crowds, no amping up at all. Literally come in and pick the bar up like nothing's fucking happening. Just, it's like going shopping, squatting 210 for one. Just you have to just like meditate on that bar. Obviously, sometimes when you're getting shit scared of the way, you're like, obviously it's really, really hard, but this is the idea. You come in, you train every day, fully relaxed. That's the key number one. The second key here is you're going to a training max every day. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, the training max is, let's say, 160, 140 kilo, let's say. At 3 p.m. in the gym, after 2 meals in my belly, and I'm happy and I'm rested, that max might be 200. And on those figures, I regulate the volume. On those feelings of those movements, I regulate everything else. So if that 200 flies up to me, and I feel like I'm in my legs, everything feels meant, I add volume. And then what I do is I track the weekly volume. I sit back on a Sunday and I'm like, okay, what did I do this week? And I sum it up and I see what the volume was. But no day do I come in and be like, okay, today I'm going to do this. Never. I try to have a weekly idea what I want to hit, but I don't pressurize myself on a given day, because that day could be a bad day. on how to or what to do. So the PRs are completely arbitrary. You know, I've a couple of the PRs that I've hit, literally, I wasn't feeling great, but the bar was moving like crazy. So I don't know when I'm going to hit a PR. I don't know anything like that. I'm not competing, so I don't really care for like peaking. So it's just literally I'm constant building, constant kind of in this kind of by feeling training. That's kind of the best way I would explain it. Matt Perryman, always Powerlifting Tooling, like they talk about it scientifically of how all this works. But no, like none of those fellas said this is a great idea for a 3-year plan. Like nobody said that. Said this is pretty good for like a couple of weeks or a month or something. I just took that idea and I was like, yeah, let's just run with this.
No, that's fascinating. Where it's like you're not trying to get jacked up at all. You're not trying to have all these external stimulus where you're like really amped up. It's very calm, calculated approach. You just go in and not even calculate. I mean, you just go in and whatever feels good that day, and you're not trying to get amped up at all. I always thought that was interesting. Just calm. Yeah. And it's more sustainable that way. There's less fluctuations.
And this is how 300 or 950 days happen. Because every day I come in and it's like, all right, what am I going to do today? Oh, I just want to do this. So it's fun. Like it's, I don't feel like I'm going to school or going to work or whatever. It's fully whatever I want to do. And that kind of draws me in because I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's kind of like fun that way, and it's free. And it's just this sense of freedom that it's no pressure. It's kind of makes training biologically doable to me, because the trouble that I have with traditional programming is that it takes a very rigid structure and it tries to put it on a biological creature that we are, which is very in flux all the time, and a billion things impact us. So many things, from cars, the drive to the gym, traffic, you know, your relationships around you, the food that you eat, the research you did the other day, like what's running in my head. Like, man, like I used to do normal stuff back in the day before all of this. It's like, shit, man, I gotta hit 80% for 5x5 tomorrow, man. Like I'm wrecked. Couldn't fall asleep last night because of this resus. I'm off my food and I gotta do this. Have to go to war tomorrow. Fuck, I can't go to war. Or I have a night shift. How do I go to war after a night shift? So then training became to a point where I actually stopped training altogether. I'm like, screw this. I'll miss tomorrow, then I miss another day. It's like, I missed 3 days in a row. Do I reset now? Like, what do I do with that? And so I continued having problems like this with being a nurse and all this normal stuff, starting a family, having a house, all these things. So I just went, screw this. Let's just run it. Come to train every single day and just do whatever you want to do. And that's what made me kind of come in every day. I'm not going to war every day.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that is one thing like people have to be more willing to do, as far as like, if you didn't sleep well the night before, you're stressed out, or you can feel your CNS is shot or whatever, it's okay to bump things back. It's okay to wait. It's if you know it's not going to be productive, it's okay. And I think you have that similar approach that you train every day, but it's like you're not pushing it as high every day. If you don't feel as good, you're going to dial it back. And that's just going off the natural auto regulation principle. And you have to be in touch with your body, be intuitive with your training in that regard. If you know it's not going to be a productive day, scale it back, wait, do whatever you have to do. So that's smart.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, buddy. Like, I know this was a long time coming, but like, awesome conversation. I'm really looking forward to posting this stuff up, and I'll let you get some sleep now, but thank you so much for coming on, brother.
No, I appreciate you for doing this, man. Like I said to you, man, been watching you for years, and it's quite actually unreal for me to actually be speaking to you. Because I remember how I used to think back in the day, and I don't know why you and I are talking. It's kind of like really weird, because in my mind back in the day, your level of lifting and training is up here, and I'm like down, like off the camera somewhere. So that's how I used to think back in the day. It's like, you're a bigger man than me because you lift more than me. But now I've kind of come into my own, and I'm like, No, I can speak to Pete. Pete's also a human being. He's not just a machine.
Exactly.
Forklift.
No, I find you tremendously relatable as far as similar values and things like that. And I don't feel at all like this soup, this persona of like this big person. I don't feel that way. I feel completely normal. Maybe back in the day, like there was more of that sense, especially with the drugs and all that. But I just feel like a normal person now, and it's really cool because I relate to you on so many fronts, and the conversation was awesome. So thank you for coming on, man. Big time.
Absolute pleasure, man.
All right. I'll let you go, brother. Appreciate it.
Have a good day, man. See you, man.